Yutari, Frank Hachia, and George I. Nakamura. All three were awarded the Silver Star posthumously for valor in the war in the Pacific. All three were MISers. As a historian, I became fascinated with how these young men answered their nation's call to defend our freedoms, your freedoms and mine. They fought and died on distant battlefields and in the face of such prejudice at home. We should always remember that the Nisei soldiers of World War II fought on two fronts. As President Truman told veterans of the 442 shortly after the war, you fought not only the enemy, but you fought prejudice, and you have won. Keep up that fight. We will continue to win, to make this great republic stand for just what the Constitution says it stands for, the welfare of all the people, all the time. But this double victory came at a steep price. Memorial Day is set aside for us to reflect upon the price they paid, they and their families paid. This weekend, we are part of really national commemorations. Thousands of Americans will come together in cemeteries and other public spaces to listen to speeches like mine and place flowers on graves. It's an American tradition more than 150 years old. As we've already heard, Memorial Day began right after the Civil War, and it was soon renamed, started as Decoration Day, soon renamed Memorial Day, and the tradition quickly spread throughout the country. As the years passed, other Americans fell on other battlefields, and as the years passed, along with the 4th of July and other national holidays, Memorial Day became one of the cornerstones of what some have called America's civil religion. That set of beliefs and practices that are the foundation of our republic. When we join together in a ceremony like today, when we fly the American flag on those special days, we are reminded of what we share as Americans, what makes us Americans. It's especially fitting that each year Memorial Day also marks the end of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. I've always liked that connection because military service and, yes, military sacrifice has been an important part of the Asian American and Japanese American story from the very beginning. Today's ceremony is special. As you've already heard, it stretches back 3/4 of a century to when another MISer, Lieutenant Ki Kobayashi, organized a ceremony to honor the first two Nisei soldiers who were interred here at Arlington National Cemetery. We are grateful to his family who support this ceremony to this day. This weekend, Japanese Americans and their friends will gather at ceremonies such as this in military cemeteries in Italy and France, where 442 and 100th Battalion soldiers lie, in the Punch Bowl in Hawaii, and in cemeteries across this great land, wherever Nisei veterans have their final resting places. When America entered the war, here's the history lecture part. When America entered the war in 1941, it was not clear whether the Nisei generation would get the chance to fight for their country. In February 1942, President Franklin Roosevelt approved Executive Order 9066, which led to the forced removal and confinement of everyone of Japanese ancestry from the West Coast, including citizen Nisei. But a year later, Roosevelt declared every loyal American citizen should be given the opportunity to serve this country wherever his skills will make the greatest contribution. This was a dramatic reversal of the previous policy, of course, that had labeled American citizens of Japanese ancestry 4C, or enemy aliens ineligible for service. So these Nisei volunteers were organized into the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, which joined the 100th Battalion in Italy. This story is well known. But on this Memorial Day, we should also remember more private events that began a few months later, when telegrams began arriving at the homes of Nisei soldiers, telling Mothers and fathers, we deeply regret to inform you. In September 1943, the 100th Battalion went into battle in Italy, and the telegrams began to arrive announcing that their son or husband had been killed, wounded, or declared missing. Imagine, just weeks before the Christmas holidays, to receive such devastating news. Issei mothers and fathers were devastated. They were shattered. For those families, their lives were changed in an instant. Even if they didn't get a telegram, other mothers and fathers, brothers, sisters, wives, held their breath. Would the next telegram come for them? If not today, maybe tomorrow or the day after. It was a time of deep anxiety. As the fighting continued, each telegram landed like a bursting shell, instantly causing overwhelming grief. On the mainland, many Issei parents had already lost so much. Their shops, their farms, maybe their fishing boat, their possessions, their dignity. And now this. For some, it was more than they could bear. To be honest, some never recovered from the shock. The news reports mentioned unfamiliar Italian place names, the Volturno River, Monte Cassino, Anzio. The hundreds soon earned the nickname the Suicide Battalion. I don't think that was very reassuring to the families waiting back home. But what choice did they have? America was at war, fighting what today we would call an existential war. And their sons, their brothers and husbands were American citizens. America and its allies were fighting to defend freedom so that no autocratic ruler would never again dare to invade a neighboring country. The Issei had a duty as American citizens to fight for their country and thereby to prove their loyalty as well as their courage. They fought alongside other Americans of other colors, as well as soldiers from other nations, united in a common cause. Well, the families at home had a duty as well, a different duty. The duty to be patient, the duty to pray, the duty to hope for a sign their soldier was still alive, a personal letter, a photo, a postcard, anything but another War Department telegram. When the 100th was joined by the 442 in Italy, the War Department telegrams kept coming, more of them than before, and some were now being delivered in mainland camps, with names that, like the Italian place names, most Americans had never heard of, names like Manzanar, Hart Mountain, Jerome, Tule Lake, names that every American can now read on the Japanese-American Memorial to Patriotism, just a couple blocks from our Congress in Capitol Hill. News from the battlefront now mentioned even more unfamiliar place names: Belvedere, Gruyere, Vifontaine, the Vosges Mountains, and the Po River Valley. In some of the most intense fighting of the war in eastern France, the 100th and the 442 suffered a combined total of more than 1,000 battle casualties, including over 200 dead or missing and more than 800 wounded. And from across the Pacific, other telegrams, though in smaller numbers, brought tragic news to Issei parents, coming from unfamiliar place names like New Guinea, Leyte, Luzon, and Okinawa. With little public recognition, the MIS were likewise paying in blood to defend our freedoms. Each soldier lost was a terrible tragedy for his family, but it was just as much a loss to our nation. How many future teachers and business owners did we lose? How many doctors and lawyers did we lose? How many other Spartan Matsanagas did we lose? Who could have dedicated their lives to public service, to making America a more perfect union? How many great Americans like Jimmy Kaniya, who fought with the 442nd, survived a German prisoner of war camp, as we will hear in just a few moments, and then went on to serve for 34 years of honorable service in the U.S. Army, retiring with the rank of colonel. we can never fully calculate the cost